The sun was setting over the dense jungle, casting a warm orange glow over the lush green foliage. Dr. David Jenkins, a renowned botanist, stood at the edge of the jungle, his eyes fixed on the dense foliage before him. He had been planning this expedition for years, and finally, he had gathered a team of experts to help him uncover the secrets of the jungle. David's team consisted of 5 members: Tom, a seasoned guide; Rachel, a young and ambitious journalist; Dr. Lisa Nguyen, a brilliant zoologist; Mark, a skilled photographer; and Jack, a rugged outdoorsman. Together, they had been trekking through the jungle for hours, and the sun was beginning to set. As they prepared to set up camp, David couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and trepidation. He had heard stories about the dangers that lurked in the jungle, but he was determined to push forward. The team had been warned about the risks, but they were all seasoned adventurers, and David trusted them to watch his back. The team began to set up camp, their movements swift and efficient. Tom, the guide, took charge, directing the others to gather firewood and start a fire. Rachel pulled out her notebook and began to scribble some notes, while Lisa set up her equipment to collect samples. Mark started to snap photos of the surrounding vegetation, and Jack went off to hunt for dinner. David walked over to Tom, who was busy building a makeshift shelter. "Tom, how's the terrain looking ahead?" he asked, his eyes scanning the dense foliage. Tom looked up, his face weathered from years of working in the jungle. "It's going to get tougher, David. The terrain is going to get more rugged, and the wildlife is going to get more aggressive. We'll need to be careful," David nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. He had always been drawn to the unknown, and the jungle was full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. He patted Tom on the back. "Let's get some rest, Tom. We've got a long day ahead of us tomorrow." As night began to fall, the team settled in around the campfire, swapping stories and sharing laughter. David sat back, watching his team with a sense of pride and gratitude. They were a diverse group, but they shared a common passion for adventure and discovery. As the night wore on, the sounds of the jungle grew louder: the chirping of crickets, the hooting of owls, and the distant roar of a waterfall. David felt a sense of peace wash over him, and he closed his eyes, letting the sounds of the jungle lull him to sleep. But little did he know, their peaceful night's rest was about to be shattered. A loud rustling in the bushes nearby caught everyone's attention. Tom quickly grabbed his flashlight and shone it in the direction of the noise. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at them. "What is that?" Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. Tom slowly rose to his feet, his eyes fixed on the eyes. "I don't know, but I think we should be careful." The team held their breath as Tom cautiously approached the eyes. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, its eyes fixed on the team. David's heart sank as he realized that they were not alone in the jungle. The figure took a step closer, and the team could see that it was a young boy, no more than 15 years old. He was dressed in tattered clothing, and his eyes seemed to hold a deep sadness. Tom slowly approached the boy, speaking softly to calm him down. The boy's eyes darted back and forth, as if searching for an escape route. David could see the fear in his eyes, and he knew they had to act fast. He signaled to the team to stay calm and slowly back away, giving the boy some space. As the team retreated, the boy's eyes locked onto David. For a moment, they just stared at each other, and David could sense a deep connection. Then, without warning, the boy turned and ran, disappearing into the darkness. The team stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. David looked at Tom, who shrugged. "I don't know what's going on, but I think we should be careful." "We don't know what we're dealing with here," David nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. They had come to the jungle to uncover secrets, but it seemed they had stumbled into something much bigger. As they settled back into their campsite, David couldn't shake off the feeling that their adventure was only just beginning. The night wore on, and the team tried to get some rest, but the encounter with the mysterious boy had left them all on edge. David lay awake, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the campfire. The night was restless, with every snap of a twig or hoot of an owl making the team jump. David knew they needed to get moving if they were going to make any progress. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the team stirred, groggy. and tired, David called a meeting to discuss the previous night's encounter. "We don't know what we're dealing with here," he said, "but I think we should be careful. Tom, can you try to track the boy's path and see where he went?" Tom nodded and set off, returning after a few minutes with a thoughtful expression. "He seemed to be heading deeper into the jungle," he said, "but I think I can follow his trail." David made a decision. "Let's follow him. Maybe he can lead us to what we're looking for." The team packed up their gear and set off, following Tom as he tracked the boy's path. The jungle was dense, with vines and creepers snaking around the trees. The air was thick with humidity, and the team had to push aside thick foliage to make progress. As they walked, David couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced around, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Still, the feeling persisted. After a few hours of walking, Tom stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on something ahead. "Look," he whispered. The team gathered around, and David's eyes widened as he saw the boy standing before them. He was dressed in the same tattered clothing, but his eyes seemed less fearful today. The boy looked at David and nodded, as if recognizing him. Then, he turned and started walking, beckoning the team to follow. David looked at Tom, who shrugged. "I don't know what's going on, but I think we should follow him." The team trailed behind the boy, who moved swiftly through the jungle. David noticed that he seemed to know the terrain intimately, avoiding low-hanging branches and hidden pitfalls. With ease. As they walked, the jungle grew denser, and the trees seemed to close in around them. David felt a sense of unease, but the boy's confidence seemed to reassure him. After a few more hours of walking, the boy stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on something ahead. David followed his gaze and gasped as he saw a massive waterfall cascading down a rocky cliff. The team gathered around, awestruck by the beauty of the waterfall. David felt a sense of wonder, and he knew that this was what they had come for. The boy turned to David and smiled, as if proud of himself. David smiled back, feeling a sense of gratitude towards this mysterious guide. "Thank you," David said, trying to communicate with the boy. "This is incredible." The boy nodded, his eyes sparkling with understanding. David realized that they had stumbled upon something much bigger than they had anticipated. As they stood there, taking in the beauty of the waterfall, David noticed that the boy seemed to be gazing at something behind them. He turned, and his heart sank as he saw a figure emerging from the jungle. The figure was tall and imposing, with piercing eyes that seemed to bore into David's soul. David felt a sense of unease, and he knew that their adventure was about to take a dramatic turn. The boy's eyes locked onto the figure, and he took a step back, his eyes filled with fear. David's instincts kicked in, and he reached out to protect the boy. But as he did, the figure spoke, its voice low and menacing. "Welcome to our jungle," it said. "You're not going anywhere." David's heart sank, and he knew they were in grave danger. The team stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The boy's eyes darted back and forth, searching for an escape route. In that moment, David realized that their adventure had just become a fight for survival. He glanced at his team, and he knew they had to act fast if they were going to get out of this alive. The figure took a step closer, its eyes fixed on David. David stood his ground, trying to think of a plan. But before he could react, the boy suddenly darted forward, grabbing David's arm and pulling him towards the waterfall. "Come on!" the boy shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the waterfall. David didn't hesitate. He grabbed Rachel's hand and pulled her along, shouting to the others to follow. The team sprinted towards the waterfall, the figure hot on their heels. As they reached the edge of the waterfall, the boy leaped off the cliff, pulling David with him. The team followed, plunging into the icy waters below. The world went dark. As David hit the water, the shock of the fall taking his breath away, he surfaced, gasping for air, and looked around. The team was. David's eyes scanned the surrounding area, taking in the breathtaking scenery. The waterfall cascaded down the rocky cliff, creating a misty veil that surrounded them. The team swam towards the shore, exhausted but relieved to have escaped the menacing figure. The boy climbed out of the water first, his eyes scanning the area before nodding to David. "Follow me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. David and the team followed the boy, their bodies shivering with cold. They walked for about 20 minutes, the dense jungle foliage closing in around them. The boy stopped suddenly, pushing aside a curtain of vines to reveal a hidden entrance. The team stepped through the entrance, finding themselves in a secluded village. The village was surrounded by towering trees, their canopies woven together to form a natural roof. The air was warm and dry, and the sound of the waterfall was muffled. The boy led them to a large hut in the center of the village. An elderly woman greeted them, her eyes warm with kindness. She spoke to the boy in a language David didn't understand, and the boy replied, gesturing to the team. The elderly woman nodded, her eyes scanning the team. "Welcome," she said, her voice warm. "I am Aqua, the leader of this village. You are safe here." David smiled, feeling a sense of relief. "Thank you," he said. "We're grateful for your hospitality." Aqua nodded, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I see you have questions," she said. "But first, you must rest and eat. You look exhausted." The team gratefully accepted Aqua's offer, devouring a delicious meal of roasted meats and steaming vegetables. As they ate, David couldn't help but notice the curious glances from the villagers. After the meal, Aqua led them to a large communal hut, where they collapsed onto soft mats, exhausted. David's eyes drifted shut, and he felt himself being pulled into a deep sleep. When he woke, the hut was quiet, and the team was sleeping around him. David sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked around. The boy was sitting beside him, watching him with an intent gaze. "What's your name?" David asked, his voice low. The boy smiled, his eyes sparkling. "Kofi," he said. "And you are?" "I'm David," he replied. "And this is my team." Kofi nodded, his eyes curious. "What brings you to our jungle?" he asked. David hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal, but something about Kofi's kind eyes put him at ease. "We're on a scientific expedition," he said. "We're studying the unique ecosystem of the jungle." Kofi's eyes lit up with interest. "I know this jungle," he said. "I've lived here all my life." David's eyes widened with excitement. "Really?" he asked. "Can you tell me more about it?" Kofi nodded, launching into a detailed description of the jungle's secrets. David listened, entranced, as Kofi spoke of hidden waterfalls and ancient ruins. As Kofi spoke, David realized that this village was more than just a hidden settlement. It was a gateway to a world of discovery and wonder. And David knew that he and his team were just beginning to scratch the surface. Over the next few days, David and his team learned more about the village and its people. They discovered that the villagers were skilled healers, using the jungle's unique plants to create powerful medicines. They also learned about the village's history and the ancient rituals that were still practiced today. But despite the warmth and hospitality of the villagers, David couldn't shake off the feeling that they were hiding something. He noticed that the villagers seemed to be watching them, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. One night, as they sat around the fire, David decided to ask Aqua about their concerns. "Aqua, can I ask you something?" he said, his voice low. Aqua nodded, her eyes sparkling with interest. "Of course, David." "What is it?" David hesitated, unsure of how to phrase his question. "It's just that we've noticed that the villagers seem to be watching us. Is everything okay?" Akua's expression changed, her eyes clouding over with concern. "We've had problems in the past," she said. "Outsiders have come to our jungle, seeking to exploit its resources. We've learned to be cautious." David nodded, understanding. "I see," he said. "But we're not here to harm you or your village. We just want to learn from you and the jungle." Akua's expression softened, and she smiled. "I believe you, David, but you must understand that our safety is paramount. We'll need to discuss this further with the village elders." David nodded, feeling a sense. Aqua stood up, her eyes scanning the team. "I'll call a meeting with the village council," she said. "They'll decide what to do with you." David nodded, feeling a sense of trepidation. He had a feeling that the council's decision would be crucial to their expedition. Aqua walked off, disappearing into the darkness. David turned to his team, his voice low. "Get some rest, everyone. We'll see what the council decides tomorrow." The team nodded, dispersing to their sleeping quarters. David sat by the fire, his mind racing with possibilities. What would the council decide? Would they be allowed to stay in the village? The next morning, Aqua led David and his team to a large communal hut. The village council was already seated, their faces stern and serious. David recognized Kofi's father, Quaim, among the council members. Quaim's eyes seemed to bore into David's soul, as if searching for something. Aqua introduced the council members, and David greeted them respectfully. The council leader, an elderly man named Kofi's grandfather, Kpegbon, spoke first. "So, you're the outsiders who've been brought to our village by Kofi," Kpegbon said, his voice firm. "What do you want from us?" David explained their expedition's purpose, emphasizing their respect for the village and its people. The council listened intently, their faces unreadable. After David finished speaking, the council conferred among themselves, their voices hushed. David's team exchanged anxious glances, wondering what the outcome would be. Finally, Kpegbon spoke, his voice decisive. "We'll allow you to stay in our village for a while," he said. "But you must prove yourselves worthy. We'll give you a task. If you succeed, we'll share our knowledge with you." David's heart leaped with excitement. "What task?" he asked. Kpegbon's eyes seemed to gleam with challenge. "There's a sacred plant deep in the jungle," he said. "It's said to have powerful healing properties. We need it to cure a deadly disease that's afflicting our people. Can you find it for us?" David's team exchanged glances, their faces set with determination. They knew the risks, but they also knew the potential rewards. "We'll do it," David said, his voice firm. The council nodded, their faces serious. "You have 3 days," Kpegbon said. "If you succeed, we'll share our knowledge with you. But if you fail," David nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He and his team would have to work together, using all their skills and knowledge to find the sacred plant. As they left the hut, David turned to Kofi, who had been watching the proceedings with interest. "Can you help us?" David asked. "We don't know the jungle like you do." Kofi nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "I'll help you," he said, "but you have to promise me one thing." "What's that?" David asked. Kofi's eyes seemed to sparkle with mischief. "You have to promise me you'll be careful," he said. "The jungle can be a very unforgiving place." David nodded, feeling a sense of gratitude towards Kofi. "I promise," he said. "We'll be careful." With Kofi's help, David and his team set off into the jungle, determined to find the sacred plant. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were ready for the challenge. As they walked, the jungle seemed to grow denser, the trees taller, and the underbrush thicker. David felt a sense of excitement mixed with fear. What would they find in the jungle? Would they be able to complete their task? The team walked for hours, their senses on high alert. They heard strange noises, saw exotic birds, and encountered venomous snakes. But with Kofi's guidance, they navigated the jungle with ease. As the sun began to set, Kofi stopped suddenly, his eyes fixed on something ahead. "Look," he whispered. David followed Kofi's gaze, and his heart leaped with excitement. In the distance, they saw a glowing plant, its leaves shimmering with an otherworldly light. "Is that the sacred plant?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kofi nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "That's it," he said. "We found it." But as they approached the plant, David felt a sense of unease. Something didn't feel right. The plant seemed to be watching them. Suddenly, the plant began to glow brighter, its light illuminating the surrounding area. David felt a strange energy emanating from it, as if it was alive. "What do we do?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling. David hesitated, unsure of what to do next. "But Kay." David's eyes were fixed on the glowing plant, his mind racing with possibilities. He had never seen anything like it before. "We need to be careful," Kofi said, his voice low. "The sacred plant is said to be powerful, but also unpredictable." David nodded, his eyes scanning the surrounding area. He noticed that the plant seemed to be surrounded by a ring of smaller plants, each one emitting a faint hum. "I think we should try to harvest the plant," David said, his voice firm. "But we need to do it carefully. We don't know what kind of properties it has." Kofi nodded, his eyes serious. "I'll help you," he said, "but we need to be quick. The plant's energy is already responding to our presence." David carefully reached out, his hands gloved to protect him from any potential toxins. As he touched a plant, he felt a sudden surge of energy. Like a jolt of electricity, the plant began to glow brighter, its light illuminating the surrounding area. David felt himself being drawn into the light, as if it was pulling him in. Kofi grabbed his arm, pulling him back. "David, be careful," he shouted. David shook his head, trying to clear the dizziness. "I'm okay," he said, his voice shaking. With Kofi's help, David carefully harvested the plant, making sure to take only what they needed. As they turned to leave, the plant's glow began to fade, and the energy dissipated. The team made their way back to the village, the sacred plant safely in hand. As they approached the village, they were greeted with cheers and celebration. Aqua smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," she said. "You've given us hope. Our people will be healed." The village elder Kpegbon nodded in approval. "You've proven yourselves worthy," he said. "We'll share our knowledge with you. You may stay in our village as long as you need." David smiled, feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment. They had faced the challenges of the jungle and come out on top. Over the next few days, the team worked with the villagers to create a medicine from the sacred plant. They watched as the villagers administered the medicine to the afflicted, and slowly but surely, the patients began to recover. As the team prepared to leave the village, David felt a sense of sadness. They had grown to love the villagers and the jungle, and he knew he would miss the sense of adventure and discovery. But Kofi's words echoed in his mind. "The jungle is full of secrets," he had said. "There's always more to discover." David smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey. They would return to the jungle and to the village and continue to explore its secrets. As they said their goodbyes, Aqua handed David a small pouch containing a few seeds from the sacred plant. "Take these with you," she said. "Plant them in your own land, and remember us." David nodded, his eyes shining with gratitude. He knew that their journey had changed him, and he would never forget the villagers and the jungle. The team made their way back through the jungle, the seeds safely in hand. As they emerged into the sunlight, David felt a sense of wonder and awe. They had faced the unknown and come out on top. And as they walked away from the jungle, David knew that they would always carry a piece of it with them, a reminder of the secrets and wonders that lay just beyond the edge of the known world. The team returned to their laboratory, eager to study the sacred plant and its properties. They spent months researching, and eventually, they were able to develop a medicine that would help people all over the world. David's expedition had been a success, but more importantly, it had opened his eyes to the wonders of the jungle and the people who lived there. He knew that he would never forget his journey, and he was grateful for the experience. Years later, David would look back on his journey and realize that it had changed him in ways he never thought possible. He had discovered a new passion for botany, and he had made friends with people from a culture that was vastly different from his own. The jungle had taught him about resilience, adaptability, and the importance of preserving the natural world. And as he looked out at the world around him, David knew that he would always carry the lessons of the jungle with him. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.